Conference room, kind of connected to the warehouse. I'm still in the office because I can work. She got a little space set up for me. You got a little chair there, but I didn't mind it. That way.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father God, we thank you for this evening together and for traveling mercies for everyone to go home. After you bless the time gathered together at work and propel our state forward with great things. In your name we pray. Amen.
We get a chance to review previous meetings minutes.
Have one change. It's listed as special meeting. It's something special meeting. That was just- Thank you.
I'll second its amended request.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Next, communications. State Board of Accounts findings. Start this out. Questions or?
I've submitted some of the conflict of interest forms for just preliminary review. There's some communication that I'll have with Cindy on working through those, and is it per kind of per purchase kind of a thing
Yeah.
versus grouped in one. So
So we had talked about that a little bit,
Okay.
and generally the statute requires that it be done in 15 days of the purchase of the goods and services or the entry of the contract. I think the safest way forward is getting one on, just gonna use your
yeah,
business.
no,
for
please,
example,
yeah.
is getting a conflict of interest form on file,
Mhm.
stating out, if you earn a commission or whatever
Mhm.
on the purchase of goods, what that is, and that you will supplement when any purchase happens. Because it's impossible for you to say what it's going to be until you know what it is, and then you got to turn that around.
So we'll do one kind of blanket for the year, and then right now, do we think we'll do one? There's not a lot of them, but maybe right now there's like 4 for
I
this
think
guy.
it's, yeah.
Like one per purchase. And what I want to know is, does that come with the meeting where the claims would occur for the approval? So that form comes with the claim?
Well, ideally, but the statute requires that it be done, I think, within 15 days of the.
So as long as it's within 15 days of the meeting. Okay, got it. That shouldn't be a problem.
That gets you 1 week normally in the schedule, that gets you to another meeting
Yes.
from that entry or the service.
Could we also, if we need to, like, just recommend that line item get considered that, like, just go either push back to the board has whatever they need.
Yeah, again, I think one of the things that we're also working on is internal controls. I think prior to a purchase, like, we should put in some sort of like small purchasing policies and things of that nature where, or just purchasing procedures where notice is given prior to that purchase being, even though the appropriation is
Yeah,
made.
right.
A notice is given prior to a purchase being made so that the proper paperwork can turn around.
Yeah, these just do take a little more time than I realize. If it's a small item, I may not even know about it because it just goes through the procedure. But if it's a larger item, I'm usually aware of something like that, and I can get the forms and have it before the board. So, and then contractual items, those are got plenty of time on those. I'll have an opportunity. Those are really rare.
Because the
One
contracts.
every 5 years maybe, so that's pretty rare. Okay.
So when contracts do come up. the contracts-
That's good to know. I appreciate you guys' help on that.
Questions on the State Board of Accounts, when it fell under the Board of Works. I've had several people ask me about the supply number 4, that expenditure was so large without it coming through the Board of Works. I guess I'm not sure who to ask how that happened, why, and why we would have paid that out if we didn't have a contract signed by the Board of Works.
Around that, I can give you an answer. Again, I think one of the things that you need to do, and to make very clear, whether that be training or whatever, is that you have internal controls in place. No employee can buy the city. And the Board of Public Works is a contracting body. And so for a contract to be executed, this board will have to take that.
So then what happens? Should that be called like thinking before it's paid out?
You have to, if the proper internal controls are in place, then you'll be able to go through that and make those filings. Right now, what we're working on is we circulated for the council review, is an initial internal controls document, which lays a lot of stuff out. It's going to be a work in progress, but it's something that the city has to take
And you
action
didn't have internal controls before.
on. I did not, I don't have like a comprehensive book of ordinances or control, but I'm not aware of one. And so we're just going to prepare it. So it's clean. I know where it is.
And Darcy, when you signed off on that, you didn't realize that you should have had our permission
Signed off on what?
on the well house payment contract.
I didn't sign off on the,
Well, I guess you paid the check. You paid the contract.
the bills were presented to me for payment, and State Board of Accounts told you that in the exit interview, that when bills are presented, they must be paid.
Well, not without a contract or without permission, I would say. Would that be right, Jules? Should we have been flagged at that time, maybe?
So I think the best procedures and processes would be when a claim is made, that there's a verification that there's a contract. I mean, I think that's going to be part of the internal controls policy, that when a claim is made, verification made is that there's appropriate contract that's been executed and that the claim is proper.
Okay.
And the State Board of Account recommended developing some controls like this so that we can catch it for future projects or anything like that.
Yeah, so one of the things that's been consistent through all the departments with State Board of Accounts is having internal controls in place to set up some additional guardrails.
And there's certain contracts, I think, that, you know, this is all educational here, but it was my previous understanding that the mayor and or the clerk treasurer could sign certain contracts without board approval. Is there like a statutory limit on that, or did they all need to go before? Because there's some goods and services with contracts, and I'm not sure like what all does need to come before Board of Works contractually.
So generally speaking, any contract that the city's going to enter into that's going to require the expenditure of taxpayer dollars should come before the.
So not regular goods and service purchases, the daily things, but if it's a contract.
Right, so that if I'm going to buy toilet paper, I don't have to come and get
Right.
approved.
No.
The council has already appropriated that. It's in one of the 5 budget category, purchasing supplies. You can go make those supplies so long as the appropriation is there.
Mhm.
When it is a contract, normally contracts are for public works, for professional services, for large purchase of goods.
Projects.
Projects. Those contracts that come to here should all be reviewed and executed by the Board of Public Works.
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I know it'll be in controls later, but as far as the definition of management and department heads and like who can and can't sign those kind of contracts and how it comes before us is spelled out there. But previously that wasn't maybe spelled out. But just to be clear, city employees can't sign contracts and they're not valid if signed.
When you look at the statute, the power to execute contract like solely with the executive of the city, the mayor's office. And that power is then granted to the Board of Public Works when the Board of is created. So the Board of Public Works is the contracting body as the executive arm to the mayor's office.
So without a Board of Works, then he would be de facto.
Without a Board of Works, that needs to factor, but then he just has to make sure that there's appropriation
Got it.
that covers that contract.
Yeah. And even as department heads, even though they are management and managers of their departments, contractual obligations obligating the city still needs to come back.
Come back to this body.
Got it. Which that was my opinion and understanding, just so it's out. In the,
Once these controls are established, will there be training available for all department heads on the procedures?
Yeah, I mean, we're happy to put together a training. It's something that we do all the time for AIM. I mean, I know that AIM has several different trainings that are out there.
So there's no question in the future as to the proper procedure.
AIM has some free ones available that we could probably host here or somewhere.
If you go searching on AIM stuff, I've probably given half of the ones on public purchasing
Got it.
and contracting.
Yeah.
Board of Works.
Oh, thank you. I don't think so.
Move on. I think we've already. Contract. Conflict of interest forms, did we already cover that?
We discussed the conflict of interest forms a little bit, so, I mean, that is.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump.
That's okay, so, generally speaking, with the conflict of interest forms, what the statute says is if an individual who may be sit on a board, where that board executes a contract or does a purchase with a municipality, that stands to possibly gain a pecuniary interest, from that contract that the conflict of interest. We're just going to clean up that, procedure. And we've been working with all of the individuals that we're aware of that have these forms, but it's getting the timing and the procedure down properly, as opposed to doing it at the end of the year. We want to do it at the final.
Okay, thanks. Then stormwater bills from September, have we taken action on getting sending out or
It pretended I thought legal was still looking into
or are you still?
there was a question in the last meeting about. How did you?
Well, I don't think there's, I mean, it's collectible.
Okay,
So
okay.
We had made the motion and voted to go ahead and bill those. So will those go out soon?
I don't, do you want them on those next, on the bills that we're getting ready to generate at the end of the week? Or do you want them to be its own separate bill?
Do you think that its own separate bill would make more sense to customers so they wouldn't be confused?
It's gonna cost more.
If we know one together and just run a separate sheet? Oh, because we don't do it in-house.
Does it make a difference?
I mean, I don't know that it necessarily makes a difference. It's getting the bills out so that those funds can be collected.
Darcy, do you know how many customers that affected?
Was it 120, Amy?
It was 210 for a total of $945.
Would they run a separate line on the bill? Would there be a separate line item or would it just add to the
It's
current?
gonna add to the
due code?
current. So the residential customer that normally sees a stormwater bill of $450 is gonna see one at $9 or on their next bill. And then so now you've got the postage of me also sending a letter to those customers that are impacted.
Yeah.
It was just businesses, wasn't it? That doesn't
No.
have
No.
stormwater?
Yep.
It was almost
Anybody
all
who had
residential.
stormwater only.
It was just stormwater only
Oh, we
customers.
are so told it was just.
Yeah,
it's
business.
just- Yeah, stormwater only,
But I thought it was.
which would
business.
include,
Some
Okay.
businesses
Some
were involved in that, but
Yeah.
the bulk of the, were
Okay, so
the
it's
residential
just the people
customers
that
that
bill
were
for
50.
Stormwater only. And we don't bill them in-house, so we can't add a note, or can you guys?
I would have to send a separate letter from their bill advising them what they're seeing on their bill.
I think we should probably do that. When we originally talked about it, it was a higher number, like $1,500 worth, but I still feel like,
Would they put an explanation like that on, if we build them both on the same bill, would they put an explanation like that?
If you put it on the bill, every customer would see that and that would cause mass confusion.
So the notes are.
So I'm gonna-
The notes are an all or nothing thing on our bills. I know we like there's one liners. Okay, but that goes to all customers.
So I have to send a separate letter to each customer that's been impacted by not being billed in that month. So now
Well, we could-
now we're paying postage on their bill and then postage on this letter to go to them as
General public statement or something.
well. Out of county, but it's our software provider.
Somebody that offering more than the same bill
On
on
us
us.
billing cycle.
No.
Okay. it's fine. It's just an open- This is.
why can't we do
It's gonna-
that stuff they won't allow us
It's
to
gonna
do?
cost us
No,
more.
because
we
Then we're
couldn't
gonna
get
get
the service.
$900.
It's on probably the next.
And they have a
conversation.
different, they have a different postage rate. So if
So we can't take our letters to them back to also.
we can for a charge, but again, they would have to know, so last month, when you saw the flyer in there for the road survey, that was to everybody. That you can't pick and choose who gets an additional mailer and who doesn't.
So we have
That's
them in cycles, like cycle 1, 2, 3, 4,
Oh,
such like that.
Yeah, we don't bill per like book area. All the bills go out at one time, don't they?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
You feel like this will, recouping this $900 and some dollars is going to, in the long run, cost more?
it already has.
And I know we've written off more than that
Yeah.
in a month's time.
Costs more than that.
The man hours that's gone into this already, we've exceeded that threshold of $900.
And if you could put some sort of statement out there, like a public note of some kind, like on the website or on some format that would help the customers understand. I'd rather it be clear to the customer too, but I don't know how to do it without cost.
Serve at the board's pleasure with this. We do what you say.
I say we still go for it.
Okay.
Bill for it for sure.
And that's what we decided the last time, and I didn't realize it would cost us that much finding out. We are gonna have errors, and I guess they are gonna cost.
Speaking of errors, I don't know if this is the time to bring this up or not, but would a more current operating system for the utility office be something that we should be looking into?
Yes. It's been, I've put it on hold since being in office due to the needs of the other departments. But yes, we are in need of some technology upgrades that would expedite a lot of what we do. Yes. I have pricing.
Yeah.
Again, I've just been in hold because most of it's utility generated. But the upgrades also would include software for code enforcement, building commissioner. It's a really nice upgrade.
I think we need to look into that, in my opinion.
I can dispel information to the board if you so desire, since I have that.
I think that would probably be good. I think that it's gonna cost money. We're probably gonna have to wait and see where we are on everything.
Yes.
but-
Yes,
So we need to look down.
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
Sometimes you have to
vendor,
shop them
We got
all.
another,
This
we got
vendor-
another cost.
this vendor upgrade is backlogged. Chesterfield just did their rollover. I haven't talked to Ally to see where Elwood's at, where they're at in the process. But one of my clerk treasurer colleagues in Southern Indiana, she just signed her agreement and they won't be able to do her rollover till the end of the year. So it's a lot of people are pulling this upgrade in to better their operations to their communities. So thank you for considering that. I really do appreciate that. Thank you.
Would it take that long for us too? Probably.
Yeah.
End of the year.
if not the first of next year. It just depends. Thank you for that consideration. I really,
Get that works information out to us and.
thank you. I really do appreciate that. My teams will appreciate that very much as well too. Thank you.
And I know it might add to the workload, but if we get a disconnect list in our meetings every month from the utility office, along with maybe the accounts with balances. That way, if we're all checking it and stuff, we won't run up against another. Maybe we need to ask the question. I just felt like from other people I've talked to, from other areas, it's kind of standard to do that. Right?
We can do that. I'm just trying to think of. So we run that the middle of the month, so it could be ready for your second meeting of the month. For the most part, we run it
Yeah, I would
around
say
the
probably.
16th of the month. So
Yeah.
depending on where that second meeting falls in the middle of the month.
Not right after we run the reports, obviously, because there's new bills on, we all want to see.
Right, that's what, so right, the
Yeah.
first of the month is your new billing batch, and in the middle of the month is when we do run that disconnect list. So trying to figure out how to get you concise data. How do you feel about those reports? Just, I'll say ad hoc, because like we were looking at the 26th for disconnection. We're probably not going to be able to do that because of the weather. But would you like that list around then, that final list before we do the door knockers and go out? So it wouldn't be a part of your normal meeting. It would just be an ad hoc email or communication from my teams.
Are you guys okay with that?
I don't recall, did we do 30, 60, or 90 days before disconnect? I can't remember.
60.
60, thank you.
I thought we had gone back to 30 a couple of years ago when I asked about that.
So you get your bill. You don't pay it in that 30 days. And 45 days after, you're on the disconnect list. So by the end of, which is now 60 days. So it's kind
So
of-
that could be 2 months behind is the most.
so disconnect list,
We'll look
and
through
what was
those.
the other thing you said, Sarah? Forgive me.
Count with balances.
Outstanding balance.
I know what report that is.
COVID is what made that all nightmare at first. We had to hold off on COVID
Yes.
bills, and then we had to reel those all back in.
Yeah. And you know what? We came at that with a very conservative approach, and I think it went well considered.
I think we made a decision on that. How to bill.
And the what bill?
Have we, how to bill.
Last month you already voted to.
Yeah, they wanted to do it.
On how to bill,
That's
or do we
No.
just?
Now, something I thought of too is just doing it a total separate, like it's a letter from me and it's laid out, what was missed and what is due. I can do that too. Instead of
But it'll
putting
still
it
be
on
on
the
there, though.
utility bill, it would be, it would look like a letter from me on my letterhead.
But will it roll it onto the system?
No,
So
it
it'll
would have to,
show.
no, yes, we can put it in the system. Yes,
So
we
when
can
they
put it in
go
the
into the
system.
office, they'll see that they do owe it.
Yes. Yes, we can do that.
Would that be easier?
I don't know that it matters one way or the other.
Well, I think we do it that way with the letter from you.
Okay.
And that way, and then with the number, obviously, if you have questions, but some of them already know that they haven't paid it anyway.
Right. Correct. And a lot of them did pay it because somehow they pay in advance on their stormwater accounts. So a lot of it's actually already collected.
You guys in agreement with that? Rob?
Thank you. Thank you for some clarity to operate. I appreciate it.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion. The Darcy sent them out with the balances.
Second. All in favor? All opposed?
Thanks, you guys. I appreciate that.
Okay, next is police department's request for curbing.
In early December, I talked to the mayor about the conditions in the flooring in the police department. Currently, it's probably a hodgepodge of 12 different types of flooring. If there's flooring at all, we do have exposed subfloor in some areas. The newest flooring or carpet in the building is back when the courtroom was put in around 2010, 2011. So that area, in the new area, is about 15 or 16 years old. It's the most heavily traveled area of the department, so it has the most wear and tear to it. It's beyond cleaning. I've tried to clean it, and after working a day with one of the rented cleaners, I got halfway through the next day when I came in and both sides had dried. I couldn't tell which side had been cleaned, which side hadn't. There's rips. Yeah, it looked like black oil coming out of the carpet. There's rips and tears throughout the building. It's on the stairway. It's on the entryways between the doors. It's out in the middle of the open areas that we walk. And frankly, it can't be repaired. So I was asking the mayor about getting bids to replace some of the flooring down there. Half of the downstairs, the ACT tile, which is that tile that you see in supermarkets or schools that's highly durable. We were able to clean and polish that at a good price just a couple of weeks ago. So half of the downstairs is in good shape. The other half, which is the heavily traveled areas, the courtroom, if you remember that, needs replaced. He asked me to check with Darcy to see if we had funding available for that. She said that we have approximately $10,000 that we could come up with to go towards the flooring. I reached out to 3 different companies to get bids. One company didn't respond back. The other 2 was Pro Floors here in town, and also Indiana Flooring in Anderson. They were both substantially similar. They come in maybe less than $100 apart from each other. Tony Jackson from Indiana Flooring went above and beyond, trying to come up with different ways to stretch that money as far as possible. He came up to the department several different times, probably had 12 or more different phone calls with him, trying to come up with ways that we can stretch that money the farthest. For that amount of work, or for that dollar amount, we would be able to finish almost everything downstairs. We'd be able to replace the carpet on the stairs, which has the rips and the tears on it, and even get most of the stuff done upstairs. So I'm asking for the approval to use Indiana Flooring to stretch as much of that $10,000 as we can.
Does it have to be done right away?
It's been ripped and torn for years. It's an accident waiting to happen.
I'm not opposed to it. I just wondered if we could wait.
Could you read those quotes, please?
Probably can you do a summary of the title, doesn't need to read all of it.
Basically, what you need is person who put the quote in and the amount, tell what the quote is.
Okay.
So Indiana Flooring for removing the old carpet, scraping the adhesive off, installing the new carpet, also the vinyl base that goes along the bottom. And that would be walk-off carpet at the back entrance, which is the heavily traveled area from the parking lot where most of the officers enter. It's a different carpet to help absorb the, I guess, moisture and get the rocks and the salt and stuff off the boots. They both quoted the same type of carpets in both areas, including the bottom stairs, which is the ripped part. For the Surface Works model of carpet, it was $6,776.02. And then Pro Floors for the same model of carpet in the same areas was $6,800. The difference of about $23.98. To answer your question, if there's ways that we can go about to maybe not spend as much money, if we can go with the ripped and torn areas, which would be the stairs and the training and squad rooms, if we can do the $6,800 and forego the extra $3,200 to do the rest of the stuff upstairs, that would go a long way and that would help. And I think that would solve the issues of the liability as far as tripping on the rips and the tears.
Well, if you're just starting off, and I didn't know what would be in the budget for that, for the $10,000, is that for the whole year?
It comes out of a, other services and charges
So then
line.
we get replenished.
There's more than $10,000 in that appropriation line.
Oh, okay. Guess that was the question.
What kind of carpet did they put in that? Is that like an indoor, outdoor? Or you're saying carpet, I'm thinking carpet you roll out.
Well, like I said, there's about 12 different types of flooring there, so we have some carpet that looks just like this upstairs. The carpet that was down in the courtroom, it was a rolled carpet, it was real thin. It looks like it was commercial grade, but it was glued down with adhesive onto that VCT tile. Ideally, I'd love to be able to take that carpet up and just polish the tile, but the tile was ruined once they glued it down. So that area looked like it was a commercial grade carpet back in the day. But we have some carpet like this. We have some that goes subfloor. We have some that look almost like what you put on a back porch. You know, it's just, like I said, there's a lot of different types of flooring there.
This is so similar. Do you have a preference? Who you like to go with?
I'd like to go Tony Jackson from Indiana Flooring, just based upon how much he was corresponding back and forth, the different trips he made up here. He put a lot of work and a lot of communication in trying to come up with the best solutions possible.
Did they mention how quick they might be able to start either company, huh? Or how far out? Are they booked out 6 months or
No, I think it'd be within weeks.
within weeks? Okay. And sometimes they're booked way out, so.
We've got officers who have been paying out of their own pockets to do upgrades to the building. So officers have donated their own paint to paint the rooms down there. Officers have donated towards a physical tactics room to install some equipment that we also had donations for to go towards. So the officers are paying out of pocket to improve city buildings because they take pride in the building. Unfortunately, it's in such disrepair that that's the point we're at. Would I like to spend the money on something different besides carpet? Yes, you know, but it's a need we have.
I'd like to make a motion to approve whichever bid Chief wants.
So we probably need to make company name, Indiana Floors, and then the amount.
Well, yeah, so the proper process should be if you went out and got bids and there are bids on the same thing. that you-
Sorry.
Well, but even though if it's close, you want the lowest responsible. So
Without.
it's just like kind of the public works thing. It's, you go out, you get them, you're comparable quotes, and you go with the lowest quote. And I don't know which one's which.
Yeah.
Indiana flooring by $23 roughly.
Go forward, is local as well, but.
So Indiana Flooring is the one he's recommending that's
Right,
lower.
and it was lower. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But does he need to state any kind of an amount, or do we need to put in the motion?
I would say what the amount is that was quoted in that.
If we're going for just the bare minimum to get by right now, it would be the $6,776.02.
What's the total what we,
He's got it, Indiana flooring broke down the other areas, depending, kind of like an a la carte menu. Pro Floors didn't even bid that work, but, do different parts of the stairs,
Maybe to clarify, I think not to put words in your mouth, but that the ask sounds like there's 10,000 sort of kind of budgeted. The quote for the work immediately that's comparable from what I can see here is 6,800 to 67 and change. One company provided the additional work that could be done above and beyond. The other company just did the base bid.
that's correct.
So one company provided alternates. I guess we need to clarify as a board though, are we going to allow additional work up to a threshold?
the other company was asked about the other also?
Yes.
I was a little confused about this part. of
Yeah, I
it.
was too.
So I wasn't sure what that all came down to.
What do you think? You want to authorize some initial and then circle back?
That's what I think we should do if we're gonna do any of that right now. I think we should maybe start slow.
I'm okay with it.
So what's on this quote then?
It's gonna be basically the rest of the downstairs, so it's going to remove the old carpet from the old courtroom, the interview rooms, the squad room, the entryways, Also, it's going to replace the carpet that goes along the bottom set of stairs. Our stairs go up to a landing and then there's another set of stairs that goes up. At some point, the top flight of stairs was replaced and the bottom wasn't for some reason. We've got two different types of carpet there. It's the bottom set of stairs, rips and holes in it.
That,
So
So if we only do this right now and in the future, you want to come back and finish the job, will this material still be available?
I don't have an answer to that.
will we have to quote the rest of the work later?
It doesn't match now.
Yeah.
I think if it's not available in the future, I think it's going to match more then than it does now. So
And what's the difference
the difference in,
that if we did it all, 6,000 something, or the 6776, if we do this?
this gets you about 70% of the way there. And this is,
Yeah, it doesn't tell me.
That's where I was confused.
yeah, and even if we went with the entire 10,000, that's still not replacing everything in the building. You know, we're still going to have 25-year-old carpet in some areas, but it's in offices
Just
and
a
other
little
places.
bit.
Right. If you do, I mean, if you're willing to do anything additional, and we can get a second bid on this and do this at another meeting, but, the bid to do the upstairs bathroom is only $450, and it's in pretty rough shape also, but I can make sure I got.
That's why there's carpet in there.
It'd be tile or linoleum or something like
Is
that.
it, you want carpet in there?
Definitely not.
But I can get, so that you have bids to compare, I can make sure I got another bid or two on that. I think if we went with the 6776, that's, like I said, it's gonna fix all the rips and the tears and the high liability areas and make the building look nice.
Okay.
I make the motion to approve this $6,776.02 with Indiana Flooring.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, I'm adding something on under other business, the emergency sirens. Would you like to speak to that, Mark?
I would, Mr. Nazelrode said he's kind of adding this in. We've been doing, for our storm siren at the corner of Tyler and Central, most of you know, is the ball diamond siren. We had some issues there last summer. We replaced some equipment. And as of recently, as of Friday, we got with Madison County EMA. They're the ones who are responsible for setting those sirens off in an event they're needed. We did test both normal function and we also tested battery backup. The siren functions as intended during both of those tests, okay? The problem comes in where the federal siren system has a self-monitor system in it. It thinks it is not working, okay? Capital City Electronics is who does most of the work for the county, as the county is the one who's responsible for setting these off. The sirens are ours. And again, we're kind of getting into the territory of how do we go about paying for this. So to bring Capital City Electronics in, we're going to pay them a one-way trip time out of Martinsville, Indiana. And they're going to come here for at least a minimum of 1 hour. So to do that, and we would like to be able to have the money that they could, if he has on his truck what he needs to repair, which is highly likely, he would be able to make those repairs to that software system, do it in one trip. To do that, we're probably in the approximate dollar value of $300 to $500 for what needs repaired and whatever his time is to get here. So I'm just kind of asking you, Mayor Nazelrode, to bring you up to speed on what's going on. We have a siren that does work, even though it thinks it doesn't. We've documented this along with Madison County EMA that we're working to correct this. But I want you guys to know that at the end of the day, there's a siren that every 7:30 every morning, 7:30 every night sends out an alert that it's not functioning, even though that it is. We've done enough tests in the past to prove it is. So we're just kind of looking to, and I sent Mayor Nazelrode an email this afternoon and said, hey, how do we go forward from here? I'm looking for your guidance on how we get approval to spend this and bring them to town.
And what concerns me is that if there comes a time when it's not functioning,
How do we know
we
that?
won't know.
Other than our Saturday 10-second ground.
Is there something that you have to override twice a day
There isn't. It just sends that out to you as an informational.
It's sending a false alarm that it's not working
Not
right
working.
now. Is the problem?
Yes.
I'll make the motion to get it fixed right away.
And you're good with that. And then, so I can just turn in a standard purchase requisition.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Aye.
I wasn't opposed. I was late. I was for it, not against it. Clarify.
Okay, go ahead.
And then, so last meeting, you had the discussion regarding the Donahue contract and the 10% additional that they were having to contractor of theirs that they couldn't do the work.
Subcontract, to their contract, yeah.
I had discussions with them. They're willing to take that out if the board is okay moving forward. So if that comes out, there aren't any concerns that I have regarding the contract after that, because they added the necessary language regarding non-appropriation, discrimination, and E-Verify. I think it'd be easiest if the board gave the mayor the authority to execute the contract if it meets all of the legal with that. So just to clear that up. But that would need to be a motion from the board.
I'd be good with it if you had a written copy of it in your hands. But if you only have an agreement that they're gonna do it, then
It's still been legal. Find anything. So he's confident that it's the way he wants. it.
Essentially, they're gonna send it to me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure that that 10% is out on the subcontractors and the language is still there.
Before we sign.
And then once I sign off, I'm gonna give it to the mayor.
I'll make the motion to approve that, to go through legal first and then on to the mayor.
second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Next meeting will be February 2nd. I think. Got the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking the questions that you did. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Hear something?
I know that.
I was expecting to hear something.
Not this week.
Get your laptop.
Mayor motion.
You had the other one going? The rest of them?
Very short.
Yeah.
I'll give up that. This is true.
There's no way to shrink down enough. There was no skinny enough.
Why not? You know, everybody likes the charm and this means it's been neglected for generations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
She's looking back. Are you not? I'll go to corrections. I can go to corrections.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Jump back.
Hi, Dave.
They're plastic. Okay. City Attorney. Trustee Bannerman,
I've had dozens and dozens of people message me and ask me about the State Board of Accounts report that was out. And wanting to know why the city attorney, clerk treasurer, city council has not been proactive on making sure that appropriate people have not been accountable for the audit. It's just disheartening for the citizens of Alexandria to know that there was a building that was spent $500,000 that, and a paint job for $12,500 that we're gonna be paying 40% on, our utilities now. So what does the council have to say about that? What does the council have to say about the, State Board of Accounts audit? Because every one of you are accountable for that. Multiple of you need to be resigning. Multiple of you need to be held responsible to resign. That's it.
Right. Thank you. On the approval of the last minute.
I'll make a motion for the minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Okay, approval of claims. Warrant 19867 through 19995, the amount of $438,494.54.
I just asked something that just popped into my head by listening to Board of Works. I'm just curious if the department heads have their budgets, because from what I've listened to, it doesn't seem as if they do. And I don't know if they can answer that for me, but it's helpful to get the funds reports as we have, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Darcy. But as far as we are learning as well, with the 5, I know Jill keeps saying, you know, that there are 5 categories and what have you. So do the department heads know, okay, here's my budget, here's my 5 categories, what I have in it or what I don't, so that they know how much they do have in order to spend. And then we also be aware, especially at the beginning of the year, so that we know how much is coming out of those, so where they are, because if they need money then from somewhere else, and it's up to us to say they can have money somewhere else, to know where they have spent it. So when you look at claims, you can kind of get an idea, oh, well, that was a supply, or, you know, Mark needed this or that. So the idea, and I appreciate the transparency, but to have to come and ask about $300 or $500 seems to me, I could see you saying, okay, which line do you recommend that I take this out of, or what have you, but I'd asked before, and I'm asking these questions because I am trying to learn and wrap my head around things. And we talked before about not necessarily wanting to nitpick, you know, on department heads or them, and letting them have some freedom on, they know what they need, but they also need to know how much they have for each of these and not just willy-nilly spend it. And it then isn't up to us necessarily to say you can't have this much toilet paper, you can't have that much toilet paper, until they've blown through the toilet paper line, you know, and then at that point, if they've done that, then, so I guess my question is, where are we with that? Like, where are we with the reports and those type of things? And if the department heads have their.
They have not got their January reports to show their January numbers.
Okay,
But you all at council, when you passed the budget, you had a 65-page booklet with every appropriation line that was appropriated out of the budget that you passed. But if you need something different from me, I guess let me know.
well, and it's, okay, so then I can go back and look to see, because I know we always have revised and see what the last one was, but if they don't have it and they don't know, it's not doing us as much good to have it, because they're the front line. They're the ones that need to know how much they have and what they can spend, as opposed to.
But they know their numbers pretty much don't change from year to year. A little bit does. I think the biggest department that saw change coming into this year was the fire department. And Chief and I haven't had time to get together yet.
Okay, okay.
Except that's not what I got from the department heads when I talked to them.
Okay,
So, maybe there needs to be some different communication.
okay, I will do that.
And like I said, I was writing these notes down as that the last meeting came about because I see in the beginning here, we have a lot of contracts, a lot of things that are showing up on our claims that some are maybe newer, some maybe aren't. So do they know what they have to work with? And then they talk of, possible the lit amount I just heard today may decrease in the future, as we also know that so those type of things to work with and be ahead of the game as opposed to the game and not be at the last minute. Oh yeah, by the way, this year you had X amount of dollars, but now you need to, I just feel like you need to be more responsible with that X amount of dollars and get what it is you need with it, because it may not be there. So
Right.
instead of just willy-nilly or, being frivolous, not saying that anyone is, but it makes a big difference even on your home budget on when you think you're just gonna have the same amount and it's not, and it's cut. You really have to look into things. And I know as far as the spending freeze that you've asked people to do those type of things. So with having the amounts, I think that would be helpful.
We look to lose 631,000 off of it
Well, and
in 2028.
yes, but we
But
don't want to
we-
be reactive.
no,
We want to be
We
proactive. And so,
absolutely, so we need to plan to adjust.
yeah, so that's where that came up, and that's why I'm asking that now. So thank you for listening to that prior to the approval of claims, but when I saw that, it was, or listened to the last meeting, it just raised those questions. And then, like I say, again, looking at the claims with some of the things coming out of lit and some being older license, maybe some being a new licensing, just things to be mindful of. Thank you.
We might be getting into this later, but the purchase requisition process, I think is covered under the internal controls. But to speak to that, Amy, I think that's also going to get cleaned up in some purchase requisition procedures. That if there is a purchase that looks like it's contractual or not contractual or meet the spending limit or doesn't, it can get caught better
Sure,
in
and
the requisition process,
sure.
hopefully.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
And like I say, that just came across because listening to your Board of Works meeting and the contracts and those type of things. Like I say, contracts just stuck out to me because there were some that, and licensing, those type of things that maybe aren't in contracts. So I didn't dive too much into the new internal control ordinances because I know that that's just going to be presented tonight, no action. So that's next on my list to kind of dive into further. So I apologize if I'm bringing up.
No, that's all relevant, I think. To echo her comment, if it's okay, I'm sorry.
But trying to pay bills, and we can get to the other comment when, if you would.
I don't know that we're okay with paying bills sometimes. So I think this conversation is okay now.
Okay.
So, on that note, there are certain things that might be in this claim cycle that are contractual is my concern. Because sometimes they're yearly renewing contracts. Whether Board of Works or Council got to see a renewing contract, I'm asking legal, sir, how do we revisit some of that since it's been brought up that some contracts may or may not have been entered into properly? What would be what would be your recommendation on reviewing annual contracts?
Well, with the annual contracts, there should be non-appropriation language in it. That is not appropriated, the contract terminates.
But
Prior to anything being placed on the claim docket for the approval of the council, a check should happen to make sure that the claim that has been presented is a valid claim. That valid claim determination is made based upon does the city have an executed contract, or does this go with the proper purchase order? And is there an appropriation to cover that? That analysis should happen prior to it being presented to you as a claim to approve.
it's an appropriated contract, we're covered. some contracts can be already covered by an appropriation.
You still need to have contract.
Yeah. And whether that's Board of Works contractor, whoever.
So you need to have an executed contract. There has to be money that's appropriated in the line.
For
item.
said contract. So there's some things that return, we don't want to have to do them, like with the township, you know, did a 3-year term, providing with fire protection, so. That one's appropriated, that one we know the expenses, that one went to the board for approval, that one's good. So just to be clear, that's an example I could think of real quick, but there's other things that I don't know. Also, as I go through the claim cycle, like, is that an annual thing? I need to stop too sometimes and ask and see what it is, so. Okay, sorry, I'm done.
Hey, Mayor, can I make just a really quick comment here? Just, okay. It's okay.
Back to paying bills.
An motion. To stop at the first motion. There wasn't one. Did we have a first motion?
No, I just had that question with that coming up, knowing, because I feel like at this point, there was nothing that stuck out to me, right, that we shouldn't approve. And then with knowing the funds, we've already had the discussion on how we're going to correct that fire non-revert. So thank you with that. So there was nothing that stuck out to me that we shouldn't approve. I don't know about anyone else, but just listening to those type of things. And again, I'm sure Mark Talmadge maybe did that as a courtesy. And I appreciate that with those. So, and I don't know if that's, I'm sorry that.
If I'm allowed to speak and clarify that later in the meeting, that's fine.
Sure, and I apologize, to just throw that out, but just listening to both that and the carpet, those type of things, I just wanted to say that I think it's very important that everyone knows what their budget is and what they're working with is kind of the point. And so with that all being said, I feel like the sooner or the earlier and knowing those answers is going to help us all. And I'll want to move forward with learning these things and putting the proper procedures into place as things come along. So I just felt like I needed to say that now, seeing that it's the beginning of the year and there's more funds in those accounts to work with. So with that said, I can make a motion to approve the claims.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, payroll for January 9th through
And
January 9th.
are we doing them separately?
They were created separately because this is the weird payroll where part of it's in 25 and part of it's in 26. So it reflects the difference with the pay rates and
Okay,
Do we need two separate?
Yeah, I'll read them separately.
and my question on that, I did see where some of them included like the four sections, that particular like the first one, employee number 6223, on the first docket ending 12/31, you can see it's pulled from 4 funds. On the second docket, it's pulled from 3 funds. Is that just because it's separate like this? Okay, all right, thank you. All right, perfect.
In the amount of $129,913.57.
Make a motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. The second payroll, January 9th, in the amount of $53,172.07.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, now. Under communication, State Board of Accounts findings. City Council.
I kind of want to follow up on this because we initiated it. So council's portion of the State Board of Account audits was specifically the conflict of interest. So what we did is, I think we were trying to identify how it went wrong. And in the past, what we found is that we had a kind of a blanket conflict of interest for those parties that were involved, that would stay in Darcy's office. But what we've learned is that the missing piece maybe was the upload to Gateway, as well as the hard copy in Darcy's office. And then can we just maybe talk about what the solution is so that this doesn't happen again? I know we've now completed 2025 conflict of interest, and I think we're working on completing 2026 conflict of interest for parties that might have that. But can we just talk about that? Jewel, I don't know if that's a question for you.
Yeah, so when you talk about the conflict of interest format, it arises out of whether or not there's a contract or a purchase of goods or services that results in a pecuniary interest in a member voting. And so if there is a situation like that, then the conflict of interest form is a defense against any charge. That conflict of interest form needs to be filled out, presented to the authorizing body. So if it's a member of this council, then that conflict of interest form is presented to this council. This council takes action to it, whether it's accepted or not. If it's accepted, you upload that into the Gateway program. But you also have to file one with the circuit court of the county. So there's a copy on file there. When we talk about the timing of it, and this is what Jeremy and I were speaking about a little bit earlier during the Board of Public Works meeting. Sometimes it's difficult to say and just file one blanket one. The statute requires that within 15 days from the date of purchase, that the conflict of interest form be completed and approved. If it's something where you're buying several different pieces of equipment or things of that throughout the year, it's hard to just do a blanket one. And so that's why I would not recommend that. The blanket one that I spoken with Jeremy, so at least get one on file that lays out the name of the business, the relationship, and any like a percentage or something of that nature that would attach for something that's being sold as a sales commission. An exact figure would not be provided until there's an actual sale. So my recommendation is to get one on file if you believe that you're going to have business with you, saying to gain a pecuniary interest out of it from the city. Get it on file, put it in the system, get it on file. Then when either a contract comes up or a purchase comes up, you do essentially a supplement, another one, saying this is related to the original conflict of interest file, and right here, it was disclosed to the council on such and such date. This is the amount of the purchase here to be done. It should be done. The best practice is that it be done for every purchase or contract that a conflict of interest exists.
Is there a minimum like dollar amount? Okay.
That's pecuniary interest.
So once those are signed, then is it closing process that uploads these and moving forward, and then the circuit court, like that's the first time I heard about this.
Yeah, so the clerk treasurer is the one that uploads all the stuff in the gateway.
Okay.
Whether it be your budget, your appropriations, things of that nature. So as the clerk of this body, clerk would upload that into the gateway system. You would take a copy, let's say it's just you would then take a copy of your approved that's gone through the body and voted on, and then take it to.
So the individual does that. Okay.
Thank you for asking. I didn't know you. I thought maybe it was an.
And I think that's what had happened the last time, but we were under a different legal.
And I say the
Yeah.
individual do that.
You got different attorney, yeah.
I mean, that one is for you, right? The way that you're sure that it gets on file with the court is that way. So if you get one on file, if it's gone through this process and you get one on file with the courts, then let's say it's not uploaded into Gateway, you got a defense as to what you did this stuff.
And it's a public forum at that point, and the public has access to it from the court system. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Everyone understand that issue? I'm into it. I'm sure you wrote it down, right? I'm sure I'll remember.
We won't have to cover this in old business now, so. But we're still on the State Board of Accounts findings if people have any questions.
You know, I don't know. I do have questions, but I don't want to take up the whole night either. So I just wasn't quite sure, like, I'm looking at, just like the strengthening the segregation of duties, you know, the clerk treasurer responded, you know, to that. And I just wondered, you know, like, you know, who actually develops the segregation of duties? Is that posted somewhere? Is that, I mean, like, is that something we develop? Like, who's in charge of that? And, you know, she said, you know, there's gonna be some compensating controls. And, you know, what are those? And, you know, we've had a clerk treasurer now for many years. You know, if this is like something that should be done, is why aren't we doing that? And why haven't we been doing that? And this has been through two different audits. I just wasn't,
I'm sorry, what was the last part?
through two different audits, you know, the same thing about strengthening the segregation of duties.
So,
Go ahead.
generally speaking, the segregation of duties and the implementation of internal controls on every level should be done by everyone. So like, Board of Public Works should have an internal controls. This is how we do our stuff. City councils, you guys should have a guidance as to how your internal controls are going to be. Clerk treasurer's office needs to have internal controls there as well. Clerk treasurer's office is an elected position. Clerk treasurer runs that office. Same time, clerk treasurer is responsible for the stuff that comes out of that office. And so if there's a finding that there needs to be an improvement in segregation of duties in the clerk treasurer's office, and the clerk treasurer needs to implement that into their office. What is being presented to you is a general guideline for the entirety of the city. So anybody in the city, we're going to adopt internal controls, and this is how we're going to do it. That what's been presented to you is what the State Board of Accounts has indicated is the best practice for the internal controls and how to set it up. I would hope that it would be incorporated into every office and segregation of duties be implemented.
And then when it came into the remediation of overdrawn cash balances, you know, I'm kind of confused with a clerk treasurer, how these really can become overdrawn if we're taking out the right funds. You know, so I was kind of, you know, this has happened, you know, in the two different audits. So I'm just, you know, like we all pay, we record our stuff. I'm just confused on, you know, how that keeps happening.
It happened in 23 and 24. We did the corrective actions to all of it here in 25.
I understand the corrective action, I'm saying, why does it keep happening?
It happened in 23 and 24. It's not happening in 25, and I'm working on all the 25 reporting to be uploaded into Gateway, and you'll see that it's not continuing.
Could we maybe just clarification, is there, I don't know if it would be Todd, Darcy, Jewel, as far as like the specific findings and just, I assume that everyone on the board has read them or looked at them, seen them. I know I've had people asking questions. We've all received the emails, that type of stuff. So could you just kind of give a synopsis maybe of the findings and then our response to those and what years that they did then? Because there may be some confusion then as to what years. And it's my understanding that an audit is done every, is it 2 years automatically on a certain, no?
It depends upon when the State Board of Accounts gets to your community. Sometimes it's every 2 to 3 years. Sometimes it happens more frequently.
So the audit was kicked off by a routine audit. So just that everyone knows that as well. I don't know if everyone knew that it was a routine audit and then the findings. So just kind of some kind of synopsis.
So now I'll just read from the State Board of Accounts
Okay.
audit itself. Then, the State Board of Accounts in their audit have different things that they targeted for the common council, the audit result. And an audit result is essentially an issue that the State Board of Accounts flags as a material issue that needs to be addressed by the city itself. So with the common council, it was a conflict of interest disclosure form. That's what we talked about, that there were members of this council that may not have had those conflict of interest disclosure forms uploaded and properly. For the Board of Public Works and Safety was public works projects and contracts. We talked about the public works process, about how the Board of Public Works is the contracting authority for the city. Just ask them to give the mayor, who under statute should sign the contracts, but that authority has been given to the Board of Works, to give the mayor the authority to execute the Donahue contract properly back. They are the only body that can execute a contract on behalf of the city. Any other contract that's executed by any employee of the city of Alexandria has no weight in law. It just is not an enforceable contract. So those are the things, and that ties back to some of the questions you had, Jeremy, regarding the claims. Those contracts, if we are paying a claim has been presented, then we should go back and we should see to make sure that we have a properly executed contract, that there's an appropriation for that, that service, whichever budget line item comes out of, and then it gets on the claims docket. Under the clerk treasurer's office, what was flagged for comment or internal controls. Again, that's a document that we believe that it is, and when I say we, I'm saying me and Sydney and Tab. We believe that it's important that all your bodies have an internal control set up. This was flagged for the clerk treasurer's office. Annual financial reports, overdrawn cash balances, collections of amounts due, opioid restricted expenditures, and capital assets. These are all things that the city needs to address and have completed and fixed before the State Board of Accounts comes again. In this audit, they had some language in that if these findings were not corrected by the next State Board of Accounts audit, that it would become a public question.
I'm glad you said that because they mentioned it wasn't to that point yet, but it sounds like it's a 3 strikes kind of your out policy. And then after the third write up, then they're going to go take it to some other level.
And so I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not exactly sure what that level is. I can tell you, I've never had that language in an audit for a community that I've worked with. And so what is in front of you on this audit is something that you have to address. And it's not something that you kick down the road or that should be kicked down the road. It's something that needs to be fixed and fixed as soon as possible. And it is those audit comments that need to be.
Yes, thank you. That helps.
Yeah.
And I don't know if everyone knew, it wasn't until the exit interview and that I had even realized that there was another audit out there other than the audit that said we did not have any issues previously, which would have been another audit that they did, that there was one with any questioning. So I would encourage everyone to go back and look just for like a comparison. And so we know how to move forward, I would say, now that we've been made aware, because when you made the 2 strike comment, I didn't realize there was that the first one. And now that we're aware of the second one, I think we all need to go back as well and see what has improved and where we can improve further.
So that my understanding, internal controls will address the majority of this?
No.
Okay, because I know about the financial, the personal, I got that, because I have a lot of things written here.
So I will say this. presented with language for the consideration of internal controls. You can pass that as written. But unless they're followed, it's not worth anything.
That's my whole question here. And there's a lot of things here that
And we-
unless we do it and that we make sure that it gets done, we're not gonna change.
We definitely want training on it once it wasn't put in place. For department heads and probably council and myself.
Well, and we do depend a lot on the clerk treasurer, and I think that's where we really do have to, get things in order here, because this is really problematic. I mean, as a council, we hear a lot, we know there's a lot of publicly address, before it comes out, and, it is kind of frustrating. There's a lot of things I don't understand how it happens with the money. So, that's all I'm gonna say is that, I'm hoping the clerk treasurer office and, with all of us working, that we can get this together and we don't ever have to come through this again, because it's disappointing.
And another thing that I've said before, and just to reiterate, is the council only sees and it only has the taxable the oversight, not the utility side. And the utility side, that's why it's important that the Board of Works sees those figures and is able to work with those figures. Because of the utility, because then it all boils down to council has to make these decisions, but doesn't necessarily have the information we need. And then the Board of Works trying to make decisions, like again, we saw with the last meeting, do you collect it? You collect, like, what position are we in? And then again, when we pay for these rate studies, we need to address them at the time and not kick those things down the road as well. So there's it's just a lot of things that need to be considered, and moving forward, we need to be aware of and see our things. Thank you.
Maybe a point of clarification, and it's been done different here, and sometimes it doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but for a long time, the council, from my years being here, 20 plus and other hats and other roles, but the utility money, the Board of Works doesn't really review per se budgets and the expenditures like these claims. That process doesn't really seem to be in place in Alexandria. Council gets the expenditures in the claim docket, but I've heard and seen this done a little differently. And is that something that we would address through these controls, where Board of Works would have maybe a first pass on the utility money to review either claims? I mean, contracts are separate and that's fine. But is there a determination that we need to evaluate moving forward, where Board of Works evaluates some of the expenditures that are water, sewer, storm, the Board of Works dollars, utility dollars? Because in other meetings, you mentioned, well, council's over all the money, including utilities. So can you speak to that a little bit? And if we need to maybe consider an additional layer of review? I'm not asking for a recommendation right now, but just the clarification of, and is it just in our local ordinance? Because other utilities, other cities and towns, the Board of Works approves a lot of claims and dollars separate from council. Maybe I'm understanding that wrong.
No, it depends on how things are set up. So in certain communities, you will have a utility board. That utility board is separate than your Board of Public Works and Safety, let's say, but then oversees all of your utilities. Utility dollars are rate dollars, they're not tax dollars, right? And so they aren't controlled, what they call controlled funds. Regardless, it still needs to kind of go through the same process of, you need to know how much you have, how much you owe, and you need to appropriate those funds out. Like, you got to go through that process. Where, depending upon how a community is set up, there are some communities where the utility board goes through that process and approves a budget annually, which is the appropriation, makes a report to the city council. It's like, hey, here's what we're doing with this. There are some communities in which it is the city council that takes on all the fiscal. And so we bring in the utility dollars into the council for review and consideration, again, for those same processes, so that when a claim is approved, it is approved after you verify that there's a proper contract that is in place, that's been executed by the proper individuals, and then an appropriation is there to pay that. You mentioned some things here. I mean, I've made assumptions while representing, when we look at the claim dockets that this council approves. I see claim X through claim 11, let's say. I've made the assumption that within those claims that are being approved are claims for the utilities as well. Am I wrong in that assumption?
No, there's utilities. in it.
No, there are, and maybe I said it incorrectly. I guess my point being that to know the balances of how much you have to work with type of thing, and the Board of Works knows the balances in these. I mean, we are the fiscal body. However, when we do the budget, we don't have anything, none of the utility monies are included in the budget that we.
It's not going to be in your budget that needs to be approved by DLGF, because that only goes to a control fund. That doesn't mean that you should not see a budget for your utility. You should know how much your utilities are going to take to operate for that next year. It's the same kind of mentality as to your tax funds. And it's those 5 major budget categories that I was talking about, right? What do you need for supplies to run that utility for the year? What do you need in contractual services to run that utility for the year? What do you need in capital expenditures to run that utility for a year? What bond expenditures are you going to have to run that utility for a year? I can't remember which ones I told you, but it's
Yes.
professional services. or
Yes, that's the
contractual,
one, yeah, professional.
supplies, capital, debt, and then your employees, your payroll. How much is it going to cost you for your employees to run that utility for you? You should know that and have a budget to be considering, and to make sure that you have appropriate dollars coming in through the utility to cover what those expenses.
And so thank you for saying it that way, because typically we only see the department or the employees that are paid under the tax fund, not that are paid typically like the utility department per se. And the other thing on that, why I was getting at, is in order to approve a contractor to say, yes, that Board of Works has to, it's gonna be very important that they know, like I was mentioning earlier, what is in each of these budgets in order to work with, because you wouldn't want to approve a contract for something that you're not budgeted for.
So what you're saying is, the contract is presented to the Board of Public Works for consideration for professional services for the wastewater. Board of Public Works doesn't know how much is in the services contractual budget line item.
Correct.
Let's say it's $100,000 for professional services. Since it's not a public works, you don't have to go out to bid. You can obtain that however you want to, but it's still $100,000. If Board of Public Works doesn't know if there's $100,000 appropriated into the contractual services line item, how does the Board of Public Works approve that contract?
Correct. And if they've approved the contract and it comes through council, how are we to be like, because it's already in a contract?
Before it makes it, so it could be in a contract.
Okay,
There could be a contract that's executed or something like that, but there's going to be a claim made. This is part of, it goes to the internal controls. When there is a claim made, prior to it getting on your claims docket, that checklist needs to be done. Is there if it's one that's controlled by a contract, is there a valid contract? Is there an appropriation? So if it meets that stuff, then it gets on your claim docket for approval. If it's a purchase, do I have the proper purchase order or whatever, however that purchasing process is laid out? Is there an appropriation? And once those are there and verified, then it gets on your claim docket.
and who makes sure that all the boxes? Is that what we're gonna work through with the?
It'll be in the internal controls, but that is the check that that statutorily falls on in the clerk treasurer's office.
Okay. Okay, in that, like I said, I hadn't dove into this yet because I know it's just for presentation, so it may be in there, but just, yes, that is what I guess I'm trying to convey, is just the different positions that each of us should have in.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how the well house got a little sideways, because we started getting some things trickle in that talked about some well improvements, but they were small amounts and there was a well previously approved to get dug and drilled. There were some things that were approved. So it's like, okay, it's pay the bill. We know what's going on, but then it kind of kept going and saw more and more expenses. So it's like, pump the brakes here, what's going on. So I think that's because those weren't in place and there wasn't that ability and then those things, the boxes didn't get checked the way they should have. So I think this is going to be extremely helpful to catch anything like that.
So just so I'm clear, we're gonna be doing the
That's good.
internal.
If I answered your question.
You did, but so really the controls is the number one step we need to get going.
It's a starting point. right?
Yeah, that's what
It is. If you get the internal controls in place and they are properly followed throughout, then that should alleviate some of the other audit comments that were received.
Okay. And then some of the others, like, we would just address those after we get this.
I think,
Good, I mean,
I think they're all gonna kind of go hand in hand. So when you talk about the internal controls, in passing internal controls, what's gonna happen with that is if you read the audit report, the annual financial report, that issue is gonna be addressed if the internal controls are proper and you get the proper segregation of duties. Withdrawn cash balances. If there are internal controls that are followed, then you should never have a situation in which there's an overdrawn cash balance. Because when we talk about internal controls, you're gonna have the segregation of duties. And yes, I'm saying we pay this, but then it's somebody else's duty to make sure that fund has X balance, so it has the amount in it or the appropriations there. So that should be taken care of with internal controls. Collections and amounts due. Those are things that can be fixed. One of them that can't be fixed is the opioid restricted expenditures comment. And that is controlled by statute. You can only use the restricted opioid funds in this manner. And if there's not that, then there's not that. And then the capital assets report is, again, that would be one that could be followed by internal controls.
thank you for explaining the internal controls as evidently as you did, because that helps me understand.
Well, you see, this is a single space document that is 9 pages, like it. There's a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, when I read it,
You could have made the font smaller and make it even more difficult
I
to
read
read.
that on City.
yeah.
Reducing the page count, I get it. My young eyes.
But that's the starting.
Okay. That's what I needed now, because a solution, what is the solution?
Questions on that? If not, we'll move on to discussion of the proposed internal control ordinance.
So it's in front of you. What I would like to happen is much like the ordinance revisions that we have made for the summer. Have the council take a look at these, make comment, ask questions. I would ask that this not take as long as the chapters for the ordinance violations. This is something that we need to start getting in place. There are certain additional documents that we being TAP, will have to work on for other policies that are tied with an internal control policy for the council's consideration. You're also going to have to make determinations, simple determinations as, do we want this by resolution? Do we want this by ordinance? It has
Which has more teeth.
ordinance. I mean, an ordinance is a law of the city. So with an ordinance, you got your 2 readings, things of that nature. That will govern the formatting of how it's going to be brought to you and how it's going to be laid out.
The employee handbook will probably have to be updated to reflect.
Oh, golly gosh. yes.
We're going to have to look at things like that and make sure that
They speak back and forth that clearly.
I've already flagged that. I'm 6 pages into the 13 and that's one of the things on that I already know is, going to need addressed.
And we know that you had talked before that you were working on the employee handbook for us as well as the benefits, so that we know everyone's benefits too.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Any more?
So read it, come up with your questions, get us your comments as soon as possible.
Can we put that on the next meeting? Cause I mean,
To vote on.
Or running.
yeah, cause I want to keep it going.
If we get the questions back in a timely manner and he can answer them for you.
I mean, what we can do is we can put this into the format of an ordinance now that we know that you want it as an ordinance. And then we'll work on some of the other documentation. We'll circulate that way.
To get it moving in draft form for public, an ordinance, remind me of the process. We don't have to do any kind of public notice for this one.
Because there aren't any penalties or violations that are assessed to the public. So this is just your ordinance.
Policy, so, okay, yeah. Thank you.
Questions? I'll open it up.
I know it's gonna be a shocker that I have a comment. I would just like to say, to thank Wendy for the last 2 years as president and all of the work. I know the time and the work and the energy and your heart that you've poured into that job and the great job that you have done. And I felt bad that we walked away last time and I didn't acknowledge that. So I just wanted to acknowledge, and I think everyone should give the same, or does feel the same about where your heart is and the work that you did, and it was very much appreciated for your leadership. And John, congratulations, and I look forward to say the same about you, very much so.
Big shoes to fill, big shoes to fill.
Yeah, you did an amazing
Appreciate you
job.
taking it.
That's all I had as far as my comment.
Next meeting will be February 2nd.
Say my name.
Only in vain.
A lot of people do that.